The cabin lights flickered softly as passengers shuffled into their seats. It was one of those long-haul flights across the Atlantic where everyone silently braced for cramped hours and recycled air. But at row 18C, a man was already drawing attention not because of his clothes or his seat, but because of the chaos surrounding him. A tall, broad-shouldered single dad with weathered hands and tired eyes wrestled with a stroller, a car seat, and a restless little boy who clung to his leg like a shadow. "Come on, buddy," the man whispered, his voice patient though the sweat on his brow suggested otherwise. "We just have to get through this." The boy, maybe 5 years old, with messy blonde hair and wide blue eyes, clutched a worn teddy bear and asked loudly, "Daddy, is the airplane gonna fall?" Passengers chuckled softly, but not everyone found it endearing. From 2 rows up in business class, a man in a tailored navy suit leaned back with a smirk. His Rolex caught the light as he typed furiously on his phone, shaking his head. This was Richard Collins, CEO of one of the fastest growing tech companies in the country. And Richard didn't hide his disdain. "Unbelievable," he muttered just loud enough for the surrounding rows to hear. "People like that should take buses, not planes." The single dad froze for a moment, eyes downcast, pretending not to hear. He finally managed to tuck the stroller away and buckle his son in, whispering soothingly while ignoring the businessman's scoffs. But the moment stuck in the air, a quiet insult echoing louder than the roar of the engines. Dash dash. The flight took off smoothly. The boy eventually dozed off, teddy bear pressed to his cheek. The father leaned back, exhaling deeply for what seemed like the first time that day. His hands rested on his knees, still, as if the silence itself were a rare blessing. Richard Collins, however, wasn't finished. He turned around slightly in his seat, catching the dad's eye. "Do you realize how disruptive you were back there? Some of us paid a fortune for these tickets and prefer a quiet flight." The dad nodded once, calm but firm. "Understood. Sorry if it disturbed you." No excuse. No argument. Just steady composure. That only seemed to irritate the CEO more. Figures. No standards, no consideration. Probably one of those guys who spends his life making excuses. A flight attendant approached quickly, giving Richard a polite but warning glance. The father shook his head, signaling her not to intervene. Instead, he leaned down, brushed the boy's hair gently off his forehead, and mouthed a silent prayer. Dash dash. Hours passed. Dinner trays came and went. Passengers dozed, read novels, or scrolled through movies on seat-back screens. The dad kept mostly still, eyes often drifting to the boy as if memorizing every detail of his sleep. Then suddenly it happened. The aircraft jolted. Hard. Gasps rippled through the cabin as overhead bins rattled and a baby began to cry. Seconds later, the intercom cracked on. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking," came a strained voice. "We're experiencing a critical systems failure. We are working through all protocols, but we may require urgent assistance. If there is any trained military pilot or aviation specialist on board, please make yourself known immediately." The air went cold. Silence gripped the cabin, broken only by nervous whispers. The CEO paled. What the hell does he mean, failure? The dad's jaw tightened. He looked down at his sleeping boy, then slowly unbuckled his seat belt. He stood. And in that instant his entire posture shifted. Gone was the weary single father fumbling with strollers. In his place stood a man radiating calm authority, the kind only forged in fire. "I'm a former U.S. Air Force fighter pilot," he said clearly, projecting his voice across the stunned cabin. I can help. Dash dash. Every head turned. Flight attendants rushed to him, relief flooding their faces. Within moments, he was ushered toward the cockpit. The CEO gawked, his mouth half open. The boy stirred awake just as his father reached the cockpit door. Daddy, he murmured sleepily. The man crouched, kissed his son's head, and whispered, I'll be right back, champ. Daddy has to fly. The boy clutched his bear tighter and nodded, trusting him completely. Inside the cockpit, chaos reigned. Warning alarms blared. One of the co-pilots was pale and sweating, trying to reroute electrical failures while the captain's hands trembled on the controls. The father slid into the seat with practiced ease. His voice cut through the panic like steel. All right. Breathe. I've flown combat missions with worse damage than this. Let's stabilize. Dash dash. Minutes stretched like hours as the aircraft dipped and lurched. Passengers held hands, prayed, and some wept openly. The CEO was white-knuckled, clutching his armrest, whispering, please, please. But in the cockpit, the dad was a different man. His commands were precise, his movements steady. He rerouted systems manually, guiding the plane away from a storm pocket, leveraging every ounce of his training. The captain looked at him in awe. You just saved us from a stall. Not yet, the dad muttered, scanning controls. But we're not going down today. Dash dash. When the wheels finally screeched onto the emergency runway, the cabin erupted with cheers, sobs, and applause. The plane slowed to a stop, battered but safe. The father sat still for a moment, head bowed, a silent breath of relief leaving his lips. Only then did he rise, step out of the cockpit, and return to his son. The boy threw his arms around him. Daddy, you saved us. He smiled, eyes glassy. We're okay now, buddy. Dash dash. Passengers crowded the aisle, many reaching out to shake his hand, whispering thank you with trembling voices. Flight attendants hugged him. And then slowly Richard Collins approached. The CEO's arrogance was gone, replaced by something raw and shaken. His voice cracked as he spoke. I misjudged you, Richard admitted, his eyes dropping. You saved all of us. I mocked you, and I'm sorry. The father looked at him for a long moment, then simply said, take care of the people who can't defend themselves. That's all that matters. He picked up his son, who clung to his neck, and walked down the aisle toward the sunlight spilling in from the open cabin door. Behind them, hundreds of passengers watched in silence, changed by the courage of one man who never asked for recognition, only the chance to protect.